Far Cry 5 is the greatest open world game I've ever played. It's a game that presents itself as a beautiful, vibrant landscape that creates this warm and comforting atmosphere. However, the horrors that reside within these hills and valleys of Home County are enough to bring the most hardened veterans to their knees in fear and desperation. It's a game about a land of people who are tired of the pain, tired of the day-to-day suffering without any meaning or purpose, tired of being lost in a world devoid of hope. Until a family comes along, a prophet who offers the people of this broken society something they've been desperately looking for. Answers.
I shall lead you to the gate, for you are my children and I am your father!
Joseph Seed and his family are all victims who turn their own personal traumas into a twisted sense of meaning. The war veteran who was forced to consume the flesh of his best friend in a moment of desperation, a deflowered angel who was ostracized by her community, the broken child who was beaten into a delight of suffering, or the father who lost his wife and child to circumstances completely out of his control. This family found solace in the idea of religion and the idea of every suffering having its purpose to play in creating the four horsemen of the apocalypse that will guide these broken souls through a new age of peace and prosperity. The reason I love these characters and this premise for the story so much is because of how relatable it is. In life, we always try to justify and give purpose to some of our most unfortunate tragedies. We perhaps look to religion, destiny, or fate in an effort to make sense of some things that may or may not have meaning in the first place. So when a man such as Joseph Seed comes along and tells us that all this pain and suffering has a purpose to play in an event such as the Great Collapse, it provides meaning to something that was once ambiguous. This excellent setup for the story brings us to the deputies of the county as they fail to arrest the father and are chased throughout the entire region in an attempt to preserve the fates of their leaders. The campaign takes us through multiple moments where we spend more and more time with each individual member of the family as we begin to learn and understand exactly why they're so invested in this cult and what it represents. My favourite being Jacob. Jacob was a man who always lacked the meaning and purpose he was promised from the very beginning of his life. In an attempt to discover this purpose, he joined the United States Army and became a marksman. However, in one tour, he would be separated from his battalion alongside his best friend Miller. Jacob and Miller would be lost in a desert wandering aimlessly through the sand and scorching heat. Minutes turned to hours turned to days, and not before long a week had passed with almost no food or water in sight. In a moment of desperation and fear, Jacob would gaze at his starving brother in a painful realization as his test for survival finally became clear. Far Cry 5's villains aren't like any other in the series. They're not evil, psychotic, or hell, even sociopathic. All these villains are just people who are trying to make sense of some things and put their faith into a man who claims to have the answers and justifications for why these awful atrocities have happened to them. The genius decision this game makes with this narrative is the component of ambiguity. Is Joseph Seed really a prophet? Does he really have the answers, or is he just misguiding souls towards a destructive cause? This mystery surrounding the character makes the entire story infinitely more compelling and creates what's probably my favourite campaign in any Far Cry game. Fortunately, however, this game has so much more to offer beyond its fantastic story and characters. Home County, Montana is simply one of my favourite open worlds to explore in any game, period. It's a land that permeates this warm energy. Every hill and valley is accompanied by this beautiful soundtrack that brings this peaceful ambience to the exploration. Soundtracks in any other Far Cry game are usually nothing more than ambience, opening themes, or just simply making some of the big moments more impactful. However, the music in Far Cry 5 is more of a character. Every piece of the OST in this game is setting the tone of the experience or providing context and lore behind Eden's Gate and their motivations. This is honestly so refreshing to see in a video game, because music can be so much more than leitmotifs for characters or background ambience. It can also be a storytelling device that allows us more opportunities to learn about these characters and this world in a really fun and engaging way. Now, am I a music nerd at heart who might be looking a little too much into this? Yes, absolutely. However, I'd be lying if I didn't say the OST in this game specifically is one of the main reasons I keep coming back to this world. My Spotify basically proves this. Music is honestly just one of the main aspects of Hope County and the experience of Far Cry 5, because there's so many other areas of this game that contributes towards its identity. Whether it's the wacky events that take place in this world, outrageous moments that make me and my brother howl, or the unique progression that gives exploration purpose and makes every inch of this sandbox meaningful. And there's so many other things I forgot to mention, such as the Far Cry Arcade, where you can play hundreds of fan-made levels and game modes, fishing mini-games, which are honestly a nightmare but they're fun anyway, or even the Clutch Nixon time trials, which me and my brother have spent hours doing. They're so fun. Far Cry 5's core gameplay loop is honestly the most addictive out of any Far Cry game, because it's going for a completely different atmosphere compared to previous entries, which isn't a jab at any of the other games by any means. I just personally prefer this type of more peaceful and light-hearted tones in my video games. However, there's one more area, one more event I'd like to discuss in this game that brings me to why I'm so passionate about this take and why I love this game so much, and that's the way it ends. Throughout Far Cry 5, we simply have one objective: to kill the Seed family and bring the Prophet himself to justice. However, on this journey, we never stop to ask ourselves if this supposed prophet is right, or even listen to what he has to say. No, in fact, we do the complete opposite. We initiate chaos, we kill his family, murder his siblings, until the charismatic preacher is brought to his knees, weeping into a pool of sorrows, begging for the clarity he once possessed, the answers he thought he had. In a moment of acceptance and realization, he looks directly into the camera and challenges the Harbinger of Doom to go back to the place where this all began, the Church of Peace and Clarity, offering the tortured residents of this forgotten valley a voice of reason and hope, guiding the ambiguous towards Eden's Gate. As we arrive at the church, we see the same man as we saw at the beginning, a calculated, composed man, warning us of the impending doom if our pride and determination to end this overrules our judgment. In the end, he ultimately gives us a choice: make peace and walk away, ending this charade of bloodshed, or complete the quest and bring forth the end of the world. What makes this moment so impactful isn't just the twist of the villain being right, but it asks the question if he really was the villain of this story in the first place. Because this family wasn't evil, their motivations weren't spiked by some generic evil traits, all they wanted to do was save people and offer them a place in their society, with their permission or not. What makes them villainous is how sadistic they were in achieving these goals, and the tortures, sacrifices, and liberation of the lands they had no right to claim. However, on the other hand, we did the exact same to them, so from their perspective, they're just letting their pain and trauma permeate into their sadistic methods in preparing for the collapse. After the bombs have been dropped and hellfire approaches the White Church, Joseph looks at us with satisfaction, knowing all this suffering is finally at an end. No more siblings must perish, no more children must die. He's finally free to give up the life of pain, sacrifice, and destruction and begin the journey towards growth and salvation. As we flee away from all the impending chaos and fire, we crash into a fallen tree as all our friends lay unconscious in the burning vehicle, followed by a familiar whistle. Joseph Seed carries us out the car and takes us away from our past life as we approach a nearby bunker. Tied to a bed and desperate, we realize that everything we once loved is gone. The friends we saved, the government we served, the family we cared for. Everything we once knew and loved lays in the ashes above the bunker we're confined to, alongside our one and only father, Joseph.
You are my child. And and together we will march to Eden's gate.
Far Cry 5 isn't just a game that has excellent gameplay, amazing open worlds to explore, and outrageously fun side quests to engage with. It's also a game about perspectives and trying to make sense of something so impossible, so traumatic, and falsely believing in fates and destinies just so you can find peace in a world of chaos and carnage to justify all of it. And sure, the other games in this series have just the equal amount of depth, there's no denying that whatsoever, but the ambiguous nature of this story specifically, and the raw factor of this experience truly makes Far Cry 5 my absolute favourite and one I'll be coming back to for years to come. It's simply incredible.